So I forgot to talk about this book before Dewey's 24-hour readathon, but I did finish this one, I think the day before or 2 days before the readathon, and it was so funny and weird. It's just one of those books that it's hard to explain. Going into it, I really thought that it was going to be more of like Dante's Inferno type adventure story, but with like a comedic edge. But it was more of, I don't even know, it was kind of like a Jane Austen era book, except with like this hilarious comedy. My favorite part of this was that the like quote unquote editor of the book was making footnotes to the whole thing, and he had a really hilarious dry sense of humor, and the footnotes come from the woman who has supposedly been sold to the devil, her brother, or her cousin, that's what it is, it's her cousin, who's the editor, and he's making little footnote comments, and the footnote comments just seriously made the book. But this is so funny, and it's just like a comedy of errors and hilarious escapades, and I really enjoyed it. So I just finished up this book, Stars Above, which was the last book that is associated with the Lunar Chronicles that I needed to read. And it is a series of short stories or little novellas that take place kind of surrounding the characters, the main characters. And I thought this was really cute, and I liked it. It told a lot of those backstories or histories that are alluded to throughout the main story. So things like how Cinder came to be on the Benoit's farm, the story of the decision behind why Winter decided to stop using her gift and kind of how that progressed. It gives a kind of a background on Thorn and who he was as a younger man. And then there's also a final story that is kind of like the culmination story about kind of after the events of Winter, what has happened. So this is definitely something you don't want to read before you've read all the way through to Winter. Yeah, I thought that this was really good. I gave it 4 stars. It definitely was better than Fairest, which I don't even want to talk about. And I actually kind of liked it better than Winter, but that's because it was, you know, not ridiculously long, and I like short stories, so there's that. So I just finished buffering Tell from a Life Fully Loaded. I think that's the second part of it, by Hannah Hart. It's her memoir that just came out in October, and I listened to it on Scribd on audiobook, and it was fantastic. I mean, amazing. I love Hannah Hart already. I've been a big fan of hers all the way back to Jargaritas, and I just think she's so wonderful. And hearing more about her life growing up and her struggles was really interesting. I related a lot to her struggle with her sexuality and her faith. When I was growing up, kind of end of high school, going into college, I had a real struggle kind of trying to figure out how my sexuality and my faith could coexist, because at the time that was such a, you know, a difficult concept for most of America and most of the world to understand, and I was not alone in that. And so it was interesting to hear her perspective, and she was actually born in 1986 like myself, so we are the exact same age. So when she was going through a lot of this stuff, I was as well. And so I thought that was really, it was just something I related to a lot, those kind of struggles. And then finding out about what her home life was like and what her family dynamics were like was just, it was kind of shocking, but it was also just, I don't know, for some reason, not that I didn't appreciate what she does and who she is already without any sort of backstory to it, but I feel like after listening to her tell her story, I just appreciate her kindness and her positivity so much more, knowing where she came from and what she's had to deal with in her life. So it was great. There was also some really interesting social commentary I think is very relevant in this day and age, so I definitely recommend anybody to read it. It's fantastic, and I loved it, and I can't even I just can't even, I just loved it. Simon, how did you get yourself in this predicament? Yeah, that doesn't look like fun. Somebody wants to be in the video. Somebody wants to be in the video. Anyways, so I finished another book. I finished Asteroid Made of Dragons, and it was really good. Going into it, I wasn't really sure what to think. I got this in my book bath box, and I was really excited about it because I knew that Winks had really enjoyed it, and I don't know, I just love this cover for some reason. When I was taking it to work and it was sitting on my desk, I just kept looking at it like, this book is so pretty. Don't know why. It also smells really good because it was in the book bath box, and the bath salts that were in there with it were green tea and bergamot, and like the whole box smelled like that, and so the book still smells like that. So sometimes when I was really stressed out at work, I would just be like smelling the book, which is weird, I'm sure, but it smelled really good, so whatever. This book is about, it's a wild mage, a goblin who's a scholar, and then there's a knight who's hunting the wild mage, and it's kind of about their adventures. And then there's a squire who is the protector of the mage, and we kind of follow them throughout their adventures and this asteroid of sorts that is hurtling towards the earth that the scholar sort of uncovers the mystery about, and then their paths all sort of cross in relation to this asteroid, and it was really cool, and I liked it. I really liked, number one, the story of the goblin who is the scholar. I thought she was really a fantastic character, and I really enjoyed just like the way that she went about things methodically, but also just the way her mind worked. She was a fantastic character. There was a kind of a weird thing that I'm not sure if it's something that's characteristic of the books that are like in this sort of series, but where the beginning it's talking about a play and then it alludes back to it at the end, and like I didn't understand how that played into it. I kind of thought that that could have been left out, but that may be something that I'm missing because I haven't read the other two books that came before this in this sort of like companion series. I was assured by several people, including the author, that this can be read as a standalone. And I didn't feel really like I was missing anything reading this because the characters are really well defined in the book, and the adventure is its own capsule adventure, so I still feel like it's a standalone. I just didn't understand that play aspect of it at all. And I didn't think it took away from the story at all. But yeah, I really enjoyed this. I thought it was a fun and funny and very charming story. And I love the way the book looks. And it's definitely one that I would recommend if you like sci-fi and fantasy, because it was sort of a mixture of both, which is funny because the box was called The Science of Fantasy. And I thought this definitely fit that theme. So I finished the audiobook that I was listening to previously a couple of days ago, and I forgot to comment on it. So it was called Design Your Life, and it's a book about basically how to design your life to work for you, and it's focused very heavily on career, which I knew going into it. I really enjoyed it, but it is one of those books that is not so good to be listening to on your commute as an audiobook. So I would like to revisit it when I have a pen and paper in my hand and I can do the different exercises, because I think that, especially me being a creative person, I would get a lot out of it, because it's talking about how to, you know, design your work and life balance, how to, all these ideas about how to get the career that you want, and the life balance that you want. And I think that's really interesting concept, especially in our world today. And I know I definitely do not always have the best work-life balance. And I am at a point in my life where I'm kind of like, what do I want to do for a career? The whole point of it is kind of deciding, you know, coming up with your, you know, reach plans and your realistic plans, and then kind of mapping them out and prototyping them and that kind of thing. So It's a very interesting concept, applying design thinking to career building and life building, and I would recommend it if you're interested in it, but I would not recommend it for a book to listen to on a commute. So I just finished Ready Okay, the revised 2nd edition, and I really thought there for a little bit. I was like, okay, well, you know, I know how this ends, so I'm not gonna get upset. And I was fine until about like 20 pages from the end, and then I was just sobbing. Like, I'm still upset about it. It's fantastic. The 1st edition I read, I think for the first time, I don't even know, it was maybe in 2000, 2001, so it was quite a while ago. And it was my favorite book as a teenager. I adored it. I reread it at least twice, and I'm not a big rereader. It's just so good, and the characters are so good. Oh my God, it just gets you right in the heart. Oh my gosh. And the revised 2nd edition did not disappoint. It was interesting in that some of the major plot points that I remember, we got to certain things differently. There were also some different some one-liners that were taken out that I loved in the first book, but I understood why he did it, and things that were attributed to different characters. And I really overall thought that the book itself flowed much better than the 1st edition, and I thought that he did a brilliant job rewriting it. I will say, if you have trigger warnings, probably this is not going to be the book for you, because I'm pretty sure it ticks almost every box there is for trigger warnings. I really genuinely recommend this book to just about anyone, because the characters are so brilliant, and it's just fantastic. Like, I don't have a whole lot of words for it right now. It's one of those books that you know from the beginning is going to end tragically, because the first line of the book says, so the first line is, the day I turned 16 years old, I had no idea that in a few weeks nearly everyone I cared about would be dead. It was therefore with a free and unclouded spirit that I went down to the DMV and failed my driver's test. So it's like, you know that it's a black comedy, basically. It's like the whole time there's foreshadowing, and he keeps saying, you know, alluding to the fact that these people are gonna die, but you don't know until it happens how, and not really why, but it's just, I don't know. And I feel like in our country right now, with a lot of the gun violence, that this is one of those books that will really resonate with people, and I don't know, that it's just something I feel like so many more people should read, and so it's just, so many people have never even heard of it, and it's absolutely fantastic. Now I'm gonna stop crying on camera. And yeah, I've put up my advent calendar, my tea advent calendar from Artful Tea. I'm super excited for December 1st to start tasting them. Also, I'm gonna do Vlogmas. I have decided I'm gonna do it. We'll see how it goes. There will be weekly vlogs, like this kind of vlog, and I will be wrapping up the books as I read them in those vlogs, because I always find it really hard to get a December wrap up anyways, so I'll just be doing it that way instead. And then I have 2 books to wrap up, both audiobooks. The first one is Harry Potter and the Chamber of Secrets, and what do I even need to say? It was amazing. I've never listened to any of them on audiobook, and I now want to listen to all of them on audiobook. I did listen to the American edition, which is narrated by Jim Dale, and I want to know how to get my hands on the Stephen Fry ones. So if you have an idea, let me know, because I would really like to hear those, because I hear they are even more magical. So that. So this is the book, Down the Rabbit Hole by Holly Madison. I listened to the audiobook, which is narrated by Holly Madison, and I have like a lot of rage about this book. Not about her story. Like, I think that I really like her, and I watched The Girls Next Door, and Holly was one of my favorites. She probably was my favorite. It's, you know, close between her and Bridget. But reading this just made me so angry for her, because it was just like a book about well-to-do white men who use women as if they are objects to get themselves ahead in life or to make themselves look good. And it was just infuriating how many times this woman was used as if she was a publicity object, as if she didn't matter, her feelings didn't matter. It was all about her being a Stepford wife, basically. And it was infuriating, and she, you know, admits that she played a part in ending up in the situations that she ended up in, but just like the entitlement of these freaking men, I wanted to just scream. And I remember watching The Girls Next Door and thinking like that Hef was a genuinely good guy. And to read this story and to kind of, you know, look back on some of the things and really see them with fresh perspective, like, I just don't know how I and millions of others were tricked into thinking that way. Like, this is a man whose entire life has been basically exploiting women for their bodies for his own gain. And to find out that, like, The Girls Next Door, that they didn't receive royalties on some of the seasons because they were told repeatedly by Hef and by the producers that they were replaceable. That's just infuriating, because like that show was only enjoyable because of the girls. Like, the rest of it was, you know, fascinating from a train wreck perspective, but like these girls had real personality and, you know, were genuine people, and it just was, oh my gosh, infuriating, absolutely infuriating. And in wake of the election, like, I just have so little patience for entitled ass men. The end. So I finished Chimamanda Ngozi Adichie's We Should All Be Feminists, which is a little essay from her TED Talk, and I thought it was very interesting. It was not really anything new to me. I definitely feel like I feel the same way she does, and I've definitely experienced some of the things that she's experienced, but I really like the way that she conveyed it to kind of a wider audience, so I definitely liked this. I want to read everything she writes. So I finished what will probably be the last book I finish in November, and that is Baba Dunja's Last Love, and I enjoyed this. It wasn't as good as I was hoping it would be. The beginning of it was good, the end of it was good, the middle of it was kind of slow, and then there just seemed to be a lot of things that were unfinished, so it was really short, and I just kept feeling like, oh, this is gonna get answered, or oh, we're gonna get more information about that, and then we never did. So it was just a little bit too short for the story they were trying to tell, or that she was trying to tell, but I still really enjoyed it. So that pretty much wraps up my reading for the month of November, and like I said, the books that I read in December I'll be wrapping up week to week in my Vlogmas videos that'll be posted every Sunday. So check out those if you want to see what I read in December.